welcome to this week's Women's Football Chat. My name is Chris Gadsby. I'm here every week bringing you the very latest from the third and fourth tiers of women's football here in England. That's the FA Women's National League. And well, it's been another week where the weather has taken over and we've been having postponements left, right and centre. And coming up this week, it's County Cup weekend, so there's barely anything to talk about going forward as well. So may well be a bit of a shorter show this week with, as I said, quite a lot being postponed and looking ahead, not much scheduled anyway. And although the frozen pitches may well be a thing of the past, looking out of the window now, although we did have a frost this morning, we might be in the realms of waterlogged pitches instead over the course of this weekend. But as always, we'll take you all the way through what we've had over the last 7 days and what we can expect over the next 7 as well. But we will start with the news, and news this week really from the FAWNL is Manager of the Month for Tier 3 only so far has been announced. Abby Britton of Exeter City getting that award again. Exeter, of course, doing well in the Southern Premier Division, currently third in the table. Through December, they had a couple of wins, 4-1 over Billericay Town and 1-0 over Lewis. Obviously, as mentioned a couple of weeks ago, the FAWNL Manager of the Month for December was a little bit of a tricky one to do because we had like 6 games to look at in Tier 3 and even less than that in Tier 4. And it was a case of which managers won games. Right, these ones did. There's your nominations. And that's kind of as far as it got in many respects for December. And it's looking as though January might be going the same way because we are still yet to have any games in the Northern Premier Division throughout January. 2 weeks in a row now that everything has been off there. So hopefully we'll get some games in Tier 3 in the Northern Premier Division this weekend, but we'll have to see what transpires on Sunday morning. Hopefully, if it is looking like it's going to be bad, then some games might get called off on the Saturday and give us that leeway to stop fans getting 3/4 of the way there and then having to turn around and come back again. So I've alluded to it there. No games in the Northern Premier Division again this weekend. So we're going to start in the Southern Premier Division where there were just 2. I mean, to be fair, there were only supposed to be 3 because of the 4th round of the Women's FA Cup as well, which we'll get onto later. But there were just 2 games. Hashtag United beating Plymouth Argyle by 2-0. And Oxford United losing at home to AFC Wimbledon by 1-0. So we'll start with that Hashtag United game, winning by 2-0, as I said, against Plymouth Argyle. 2 teams, of course, who are in the FAWNL Cup semi-final. Looking ahead to that at the end of January. Hashtag United hosting Nottingham Forest in what I think would have been a really good final. But we've got that at the semi-final stage, and Plymouth Argyle hosting Stoke City. But in this league fixture, Hashtag United, Samantha Rowland 12 minutes into the game put them in front, and then Honor Norton in the 73rd minute put them 2 to the good, and they take all 3 points. And then a narrow game between Oxford United and AFC Wimbledon. Ashley Hinks with the only goal for Wimbledon as they win by 1-0. Into the Southern Premier Division table then after those 2 games, and quite a little bit of movement towards the top half of the table. Hashtag United move out in front by 3 points ahead of Ipswich Town, although Ipswich Town now have 3 games in hand on Hashtag United, and it's only a 3-point gap. So Ipswich still very much in control of the Southern Premier Division at the moment, even though they do drop to 2nd. AFC Wimbledon are up to 4th. They've jumped up 2 places above both Watford and Oxford United after that win in Oxford. So they're into the top third of the table now. They are 9 points away from #United at the top of the table. Yes, they do have a game in hand on them, but they are a long way off. I think realistically, you're probably looking at the top three as being the title contenders in the Southern Premier Division, and maybe even just those top two. But yes, and then down towards the bottom, Plymouth Argyle, having lost 2-0 to #, remain in 10th. Their goal difference is a little bit worse, of course, but they are still 1 point clear of Gwalior United, who currently occupy the relegation spot, or one of the two relegation spots in the Southern Premier Division. Milton Keynes Dons, of course, with just 8 games to go, are 8 points away from safety. Realistically, it's 9 points away from safety, with the vastly inferior goal difference that they have. So you're looking for MK Dons, you're looking for 3 wins from their last 8 games. What is going to be really big for them, I mean, they don't play again until February, but what will be important for them is that home game against Gwalior United. But you look at the fixtures that MK Dons have got still to go. They've got Ipswich Town, they've got Wimbledon, they've got Oxford, they've got #United. Well, there's 4 of the 7 that remain, sorry, 4 of the 8 that remain. They've got Watford as well. So of their 5 games, so of their 8 remaining games, 5 of them are against teams in the top half. It doesn't look as though, and then they've got, on the final day is Lewis, who are 7th. They've got Billericay, who are 8th. So of their 8 remaining games, 7 of them are against teams in the top 8. It doesn't get any easier for Milton Keynes Dons to try and figure out where they're going to get those results from. But that covers Tier 3. As I said, there's only 2 games in Tier 3 this weekend, so not a huge amount to be able to report. We will move, therefore, down into Tier 4, starting with Division 1 Midlands. Great win for Bolmere St Michael's, beating Peterborough United by a 1-0. Riddy Rupriella on the stroke of half-time, the only goal of the game between those two sides, and it gives them the 1-0 victory. Really dents Peterborough United's title hopes. But no such problems for Loughborough Lightning, who put 10 past Lincoln United. 5 in the first half, 5 in the second half. Zinnia Delgin opening the scoring for Loughborough in the 4th minute. Lauren Purchase in the 9th minute, who then got her second in the 15th minute, who then got her third in the 26th minute. So a 17-minute hat-trick for her. Followed up then by 2 for Jessica Collier in the 36th and the 52nd. Sarah Woodburn in the 56th. And then Lydia Tilbury-Henry in the 75th, Jade Arber in the 83rd, and Evie Williams in the 85th. So 7 different goal scorers for Loughborough Lightning from their 10 goals against Lincoln United. And Northampton Town beating Notts County by 4-1. Goals in this one: Paige Ridley in the 41st minute for Northampton Town, Faith Horner 71st minute, Jemima Footit 66th minute, and Faye Noble 89th minute with the goals for Northampton. Notts County's only goal of the game coming to Leah Hardy in the first half for them, but Northampton continue to go strong towards the top of the table. There is no movement in the Division 1 Midlands table despite those results. That's because Northampton Town, who were top of the table anyway, have won again. They are now 5 points clear of Peterborough United and have a game in hand on them. They are 6 clear of Leafield Athletic, having both played 13 games each. Loughborough Lightning, because they won 10-0, their goal difference has vastly improved, as you might expect. They haven't gained any further positions up the table, though. This was one of their games in hand, really, on the likes of Leafield. And they remain 8 points behind Northampton Town. They have 3 games in hand, so if they were to win all of those games, then they would be able to catch Northampton Town up. Don't forget, one of those games in hand is against Northampton Town and is coming up in the next few weeks. And then Boldmere St Michael's, the other team who won, they were in 5th. They were 3 points clear of Barnsley Women's in 6th. They are now 6 points clear of Barnsley Women's in 6th. Down towards the bottom, so Notts County remain in 7th. Their goal difference, well, they were the only team on 18 points anyway, so despite the lower goal difference, they stay where they are. Lincoln United remain in 9th. They've gone from -12 to -22 in the goal difference, but because they were lower than Sutton Coldfield Town in that category anyway, they were already in 9th, have remained in 9th. And Peterborough United remain in 2nd because Leaford Athletic did not play. And but as I said, they are now 5 points behind Northampton Town. They have 8 games to go, so they'll be relying on a few results elsewhere to help them out. But in terms of that relegation fight, none of the bottom 3 sides, Worcester City, Solihull Moors or Lincoln City, all played. Lincoln United and Sutton Coldfield Town, who are in 9th and 8th respectively, are 10 points clear of Solihull Moors. You would expect that they have done enough to survive in Division 1 Midlands for another year. Right, Division 1 North then, just 2 games to talk about in this one. Durham Sestra 0, Cheadletown Stingers 1. Cheadletown just keep on winning football matches. Isabel Dean with the only goal of the game in the second half. Middlesbrough beating Leeds United by a 1-0. Rebecca Ferguson with the only goal in that game. So not a huge amount in terms of masses of entertainment in Division 1 North, but it has involved some movement in the Division 1 North table. Cheadletown Stingers go top, having played the same number of games as Chorley and Leeds. They are 2 points clear and with the best goal difference in the division. They are on 28 points from their 13 games. Chorley dropped down to 2nd. Their game against Huddersfield Town was postponed. Middlesbrough are up to 4th, above Huddersfield Town with their victory. They are, with 2 games in hand, 4 points behind Cheadletown Stingers. So Middlesbrough still in the driving seat at the minute to be able to go top of the table and look for a return to Tier 3. Cheadletown Stingers are still going strong in Division 1 North, but let's say Middlesbrough win their 2 games in hand. Let's say Huddersfield Town, who are in 5th at the moment, win their game in hand. And see what those games are against. There's a couple there. So Middlesbrough have got games postponed against Norton and Stockton Ancients and AFC Fylde at the minute. Well, they're both down towards the bottom of the table. Huddersfield Town have games postponed against Norton and Stockton Ancients and Chorley, so that's going to be a really big encounter when that happens. So it is going to be a really interesting one. We could be in a situation where the top 5 in Division 1 North are separated by just 5 points when the games have balanced themselves out. And we still have this situation towards the bottom where the bottom 5 sides are only separated by 1 point at the moment. So it's going to go right down to the wire in Division 1 North, as we've said every single week. And it is just, I think, the most exciting league that we have here in the FAWNL this year. Let's go away from the north then. Let's go down into south east. So again, this was meant to have 5 games, only ended up having 3. Cambridge United beating London Seaward by a 0-0. Alicia Stocktoe down with the only goal of the game for Cambridge United. Chatham Town and Rail Bedford played out a 0-0 draw, but Norwich City back to winning ways with a 7-0 victory over Ashford Town. 4 goals for Natasha Snelling, 1 for Holly Kennard, Freya Simmons and Shannon Shaw. So a big victory for Norwich City. And that has resulted in a lot of movement in Division 1 South East because that mid-table is so tightly packed. So Norwich City up 2 places, back to 4th. It was only a couple of weeks ago they were down in 8th. Norwich City back to fourth, 6 points from the top of the table, but they've played the same number of games as Chatham, and Real Bedford still have a game in hand as well. London Bees and AFC Sudbury both drop a place. They're neither of them playing in the league this weekend. And then the other victor from the weekend, Cambridge United beating London Seaward by 1-0. So Cambridge United jump up a couple of places. Queen's Park Rangers down to 8th, Dulwich Hamlet down to 9th. Neither of those sides played this weekend either, but neither of those sides are in any sort of danger of going down. Dulwich Hamlet have a 13-point gap to the relegation zone, so 5 wins essentially. The gap between them and the relegation zone, and London Seaward only have 7 games remaining. London Seaward themselves, despite losing, go back above Ashford Town on goal difference, because London Seaward's 1-0 defeat not as bad as Ashford Town's 7-0 defeat. And of course, with the top 2 playing out a 0-0 draw, the top of the table remains the same. They've both just gained another point. Through then into Division 1 South West, final league results to look at. Moneyfields beating Keynsham Town by 4-0. Big result for Moneyfields, this one. Lucy Cooper had put them in front in the first half. And then a 4-minute hat-trick for Shannon Albury for Moneyfields. 79th, 81st and 83rd minute. Meant it went from a tight game with 12 minutes to go to completely over with 7 minutes to go. So great result, that one, for Moneyfields. Swindon Town continued to play football matches and continue to win football matches, winning away at Southampton Women's by 5-0. Goals to Elise Haynes in the 13th minute, Sahara Osborne Ricketts in the 44th, Livy Davis in the 48th, Jessica Smith in the 63rd, and Annabelle Colston in the 66th minute. So Swindon Town winning by 5-0. And Worthing, big winners against Bournemouth Sports, 7-1, 4 for Tierney Scott in this one, 2 for Lauren Amarena and 1 for Georgia Tibble. So a big win for Worthing. Bournemouth Sports don't have information of their one scorer. Is it an own goal? Or yeah, own goal in the 81st minute was the only goal for Bournemouth Sports. So you could kind of call it 8-0 really to Worthing, but 7-1. And it was a big win for them. In terms of what that means for the Southwest table, there's not as much movement as you might expect with big wins such as those. So Swindon Town remain top. So they are now, from their 15 games, have 31 points. So they have dropped 14 points this season. They are 3 points clear of now Moneyfields in second after their big win over Keynsham Town. And then AFC Bournemouth dropped to third. But the important thing with AFC Bournemouth to remember is that they are only 4 points behind Swindon Town. They now have 6 games in hand on Swindon Town. And of course, next weekend, they have their they have their plate semi-final against Manchester United Academy. So there's another weekend where they won't be playing a league fixture. They're going to have a very busy back end of the year. So Moneyfield up to second with that win over Keynsham. Swindon Town remain first with the win over Southampton Women's. And then against Worthing are up to 5th above Bristol Rovers with that big 7-1 win over Bournemouth Sports. In terms of then towards the bottom, so Bournemouth Sports remain 10th. They are now only above the relegation zone by 4 goals. Southampton Women's remain at the bottom. Keynsham Town, though, remain 4th, but they are already still behind Bournemouth, who have so many games in hand. Moneyfields, yes, they're second. They're only 1 point ahead of Bournemouth, and Bournemouth have 3 games in hand. They are still have a 100% record in the FAWNL Division 1 South West, and other than that very first midweek of the season where they've ended up in the plate, they've gone through all the plate without losing as well now. So yeah, Bournemouth, expect them to start getting to the top of that table. And just for context here, I mean, Bournemouth if they win all 6 of their games, let's take them to 15 games, because why not? If they win all 6 of those games, that's another 18 points. That puts them on 41, and they will be 10 ahead of Swindon. Moneyfields, if they win their 3, will get themselves to 37. So Bournemouth will then be 4 points clear, 5 points clear of Moneyfields. And they will be in control of that league. But Moneyfields will feel that they are still a side capable of overtaking Bournemouth. Now, Moneyfields, if after 15 games, if they're there on 37 points and Bournemouth are there on, sorry, it's 45 points, isn't it? Sorry, not 41. I didn't think the maths worked properly. Yeah, if Bournemouth win their 6 games to go to Swindon Town, they will be on 45 and will be 14 points clear of Swindon Town. Moneyfields would be on 37. Bournemouth would have an 8-point gap at the top of the table, and that would probably do it at the 15-point mark, at the 15-game mark. But are Bournemouth going to get too tired in the back end of the season playing all of these games? I think that's what we might need to look at with them going forward. Right, let's look at some of the reason we had so few games then. The Women's FA Cup 4th round was taking place over the course of the weekend, and some of the games got played this week as well because of the postponements at the weekend. So, we'll start with London Bees against Rugby Borough. Rugby Borough of Tier 3, London Bees of Tier 4. Rugby comfortably winning this one by 6 goals to nil. It was 4-0 at half-time. Nikki Potts, Ebony Wiseman, May Moncaster and Angelina Nixon in the first half. And then Rhiann Rush and Nixon again in the second half made it 6-0 to Rugby Borough, who have been by far and away the FA's favourite team in the draw. They could not stop going on about them in the draw on Monday and saying how great it was and how good of a club Rugby are and how ambitious Rugby are. And it while I love it, it didn't quite sit right that if they were in Tier 4, then by all means, yes. But to be going on and on and on about how great this one particular club is, and then almost completely ignoring Wolves, who are only 2 places and 3 points above them in the same league, it struck me that perhaps because Wolves have the same name as Wolves men, and I think there was a bit of an assumption between those two whereas then Rugby Borough, I think because of the name change a couple of years ago, people didn't realise that they have been in the Championship. They were Coventry United. They've been there. They're not a team that's come up from Tier 5 and this is their first year in Tier 3 and oh look, they're doing amazingly. That's taking nothing away from Rugby. It didn't quite seem right that they were saying how great this one team is and then not saying how great Wolves were. And to some respect as well, Stoke, who were still in the hat at that point because their game was postponed. Stoke was still in the hat. They were technically the lowest ranked side left in the competition, Stoke, and don't get a mention. So I think a little bit more research perhaps needed ahead of these draws. I think it's a common theme. There are a lot of women's football podcasts around now, and I think it's a common theme that anything lower than the Championship just is not understood. It's not researched either, which is a shame, but it's an opportunity to learn and improve for the next one. Now, I don't feel as though there's going to be any, my gut instinct, I don't think there's going to be any FAWNL sides in the next round of the FA Cup because both sides that are left in the competition have got Super League sides. I think they're going to be great occasions for Wolves and Rugby, but I don't think we're going to have anybody in tier 5, in all honesty. Right, Leicester City 4, Stoke City 1. This was postponed at the weekend and was played yesterday. Don't believe full time, which currently has Stoke winning 4-1, because that's not the situation. West Ham against Liverpool postponed. Arsenal Bristol City postponed. Chelsea beat Charlton Athletic by 4-0. Exeter City, they lost to Sunderland by 7-1. Sarah Stacey with Exeter's only goal of the game in the 38th minute, after what was a very, very long trek for Sunderland to get all the way down to Exeter. Cheltenham Town 0, Wolverhampton Wanderers 2, despite full time saying Cheltenham won 2-0. Amber Hughes in the 61st minute and Beth Merrick in the 70th minute with the goals for Wolves. Brighton Hove Albion against Durham was postponed. Newcastle beat Nottingham Forest by 1-0. Those two sides, of course, rivals for the title in the Northern Premier Division last year. It's Newcastle that won that by 1-0. Very nice strike as well from Newcastle. Blackburn Rovers against Portsmouth, that was postponed at the weekend. It then got played in the week, and it was won by Portsmouth, which then relies on a very, very long trip for Sunderland after that one. Portsmouth winning that one. It's not been by 3-1. There we go. I missed it. But yeah, Portsmouth winning that by 3-1. Manchester City 1, Ipswich Town 3. Manchester City 3, Ipswich Town 0. I've done that time and time again when I've been putting the tiers next to the sides, and I've been reading that as the score. Manchester City 3, Ipswich Town 0. No goals for Ipswich, but a very valiant effort against a Manchester City side. Aston Villa 0, Bristol Rovers. Aston Villa 9, Bristol Rovers 0. Again, great effort from Bristol Rovers. I think it was more a game for the occasion rather than anything else for them there. Everton Spurs was postponed. Manchester United beat West Brom by 7-0 on the Saturday. A comfortable win for them. Crystal Palace beat Sheffield United 6-1 in a Super League versus Championship affair, and the lowest ranked side left in the competition in the 4th round stage, Fulham, lost by 5-0 to London City Lionesses. So we have just 2 FAWNL sides left in the Women's FA Cup. Wolverhampton Wanderers are hosting Manchester United, and Rugby Borough are hosting either West Ham or Liverpool, both Super League sides, but they have not yet played their 4th round game, so we don't know when. We don't know who they are playing yet, but the ties are to be played on February the 9th. Right then, let's finish off this week's show with a look at the fixtures coming up in the next 7 days. It is It is County Cup Day across England, so there is not a lot to discuss. But 5 games are scheduled for the Northern Premier Division. Liverpool Feds against Rugby Borough, 6th against 4th. Sporting Cowser, who are down in 10th, taking on Nottingham Forest, currently top of the table. Stoke City against Hull City is 5th against 9th. There's a derby between Stourbridge and Wolverhampton Wanderers, 11th against 2nd. And Halifax take on West Bromwich Albion. That is 12th against 8th. Burnley are in County Cup action, so they are not playing Derby. But the Northern Premier Division, is there going to be a lot of movement? I mean, Rugby, if they win against Liverpool Feds, to be honest, I think Rugby have to win against Liverpool Feds, because if they fail to do so, they are going to be 10 points off the pace with just 1 game in hand, and I think that would be too far back. And I think then you're looking at being between Forest, Wolves and Burnley. Burnley, of course, twice have now gone to the City Ground and got draws. So it's going to be a very good end to the season. I think we're still waiting for that Forest Wolves game to be put in full time as well. The longer it goes on, the more I believe they're going to put it in on the penultimate weekend of the season. And that may well be a title decider. I'm starting to lean more towards that being the case here. But yeah, 5 games in the Northern Premier Division. In the Southern Premier Division, just 2. Exeter City, who are currently in 3rd, take on Gwalior United down in 11th. And Plymouth Argyle in 10th face Watford, who are 6th. So an opportunity for both of those sides, Gwalior and Plymouth, to, in Plymouth's case, get themselves further away from the relegation zone. In Gwalior's case, get themselves out of it. I mean, away at Exeter, that's going to be very difficult. Watford have got a long trip to Plymouth. Plymouth might be able to get a draw or something from that game, and just increase that gap even more to MK Dons. If Plymouth were able to win that game and MK Dons have suddenly got an 11 but goal difference, make it 12-point gap, then you start to think, where are those points going to come from? Into the Midlands, just 1 game. Pretty much everybody in County Cup action. Barnsley Women's against Solihull Moors, 6th against 11th. Solihull Moors will be desperate. This is their game in hand on the teams they're trying to catch, principally Worcester City. So they'll really want to take advantage of this against a Barnsley Women's side who are firmly in mid-table, 6th at the moment, 17 points away from the top, no danger there. 16 points away from the relegation zone, no danger there either. It's just a case of finishing as high up the table as they possibly can. So just the 1 game there in the Midlands, and then 1 game in Division 1 Southwest. Maidenhead United against AFC Bournemouth. Maidenhead United in 8th, 7 points clear of the drop zone. Bournemouth, this is one of their many games in hand. They can get themselves back up to 2nd with a win away at Maidenhead. And that's it. As I said, there are only 9 games scheduled for the FAWNL for this coming weekend. So we are praying with everything crossed that we do not get a lot of postponements. Otherwise, next week's show is going to be extremely short if we've just got 1 or 2 games to talk about with regards to how it's affected the league tables. But that'll do it for this week's episode of the show. As always, if you want to get involved, then at WFootballChat is the place to go on Twitter for all of the latest. Be back to normal posting over the course of this weekend after a very brief break away. And we'll be back next week with all the very latest again. Thursday evenings on the WFootballChat channel is the place for your very latest from the FAWNL. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode, and goodbye.